Earl, if when we get ready to start, you can do the introductions anytime you like, and then we'll go through, and then I'll
Oh,
give details.
you're not gonna you're not gonna do the intro?
Sure, I can if you'd like me to. That's fine.
Yeah, this is you're sure. We just come along for the ride.
I understand. I understand. Let's give it about one more minute and we'll go.
Okay. Because after you say something, why Wes will welcome them on behalf of the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting to get started, so hang with us. They're going to get started in about 1 minute, so stick with us.
Welcome to those in attendance on behalf of the Mercer County Sheriff's Office. I'm Wes so-and-so.
All right, we are live on WHBN Hometown Live tonight with Neighborhood Watch 2023. We are broadcasting via Zoom as well as hometownlive.net and Hometown Live Facebook page. Appreciate everybody joining us tonight. We're going to introduce everybody here in a minute. If you do decide to join us on the Zoom, you do have the ability to click the chat button and ask questions anytime. We appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and I will pass it around the room for the introductions. I am Rick Maxfield. I'm the Deputy Chief for the Mercer County Fire Protection District, and I'll be talking to you a little bit tonight about fire safety and fire prevention.
Wes.
All right. Good afternoon, Wes Gaddis. I'm here on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. I'll be covering part of the criminal activity, including the scams that some of us face here in the county, and some of our registered sex offender compliance program questions, if anybody has any questions about that.
Thank you, Wes. And I'm Earl Motzer. I'm chair of the Crime Stoppers organization in Mercer County. Thank you for all of you who are watching or listening tonight. We will do this the way that we've done it for the past 25 years, with the exception that we don't have handouts for you sitting there. However, we do have handouts either by going to the Zoom or by going to WHBN at their hometownlive.net. You can download a 3-page agenda, and that would be helpful for you to follow along. Although, even if you don't have an agenda, we're going to be going through the program just as normal. The agenda has 2 features to it. One, it can help you in terms of following and knowing what's been covered and what's going to be covered. Also, on the agenda, there are links to some of the topics that we're going to cover. Do you need to have those links to listen tonight? No. But if you want to learn more about some of the items that we do discuss tonight, it would be helpful for you to at least download the agenda. And so later on at your convenience, you can click on the links in which you have an interest. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that you're all human, which means that you will forget a lot of what we covered tonight in 24 hours. That makes you officially human. And so the reason for having the links is to help you recall or to help you to dig further into whatever topic we're covering. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Maxfield, who will talk to you about fire safety.
Okay, I'm going to put a few brochures up on the screen, and that way you can see them. So give me just one moment to share my screen. It'll just take a second. And we're going to talk, first off, we're going to talk a little bit about smoke detectors. Make sure that everybody understands about where smoke detectors are supposed to be in the house and how many you have is an important thing. The Mercer County Fire Protection District does provide smoke detectors to those persons who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and we can install them for you. You can contact us and we would be more happy to help you. So let's start off with hear the beep when you're asleep. Every bedroom needs a working smoke alarm. Half of home fire deaths happen between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. when most people are asleep. It's a good idea to install your smoke alarms in every bedroom, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home, including the basement. Larger homes may need more alarms. For the best protection, install interconnected smoke alarms, which those are the wired ones that go and connect together. When one sounds, they all sound. And what you have to do is you have to take the precaution not to take the batteries out. Make sure you test your alarms monthly by pushing the button. Replace all smoke alarms at least every 10 years. A lot of us get a little lax, and when we go to check smoke alarms for a fire alarm call, we notice that some of the alarms are 15, 20 years old, and they have a tendency to fail, just like anything else that's man-made. When you have an alarm that goes off and you're unsure of why, call 911 and we'll be there as soon as we can to help you out. But some preventative maintenance ideas. Make sure, like we said, test your alarms once a month by pushing the button. Replace the alarm every 10 years. And we still suggest, if you have regular battery-operated smoke detectors, to change those batteries out. And a good rule of thumb is every 6 months, just to make sure. When the time change your batteries. That's always a good plan of action. All right, so let me show you the next one about smoke alarms. And again, we talked about make sure you replace that alarm every 10 years. That's important. Age matters when it comes to your smoke alarms, and check the manufacturer date. You can find that on the back of the alarm. If it's a battery operated alarm, there'll be a date of manufacture. If it's more than 10 years old, it needs to be replaced. Remove it from the wall or the ceiling. Look at the back of it. Look for the date of manufacture. Like we said, 10 years. If it's less than 10 years old, you can put it back up. Now, does that mean that a smoke alarm won't go bad? No, they go bad all the time. And unfortunately, with the interconnected smoke alarms, when they do go bad, they ring throughout the house, the basement, the attic, and the garage, and it can be kind of nerve-wracking. But if you understand how to check your system and check your detectors to make sure that they're in good working order, you shouldn't have any problems. Another thing we like to talk about is a closed door may slow the spread of fire. So if your alarms are going off and there's a fire, make sure your bedroom doors close, especially every night when you go to sleep. If smoke alarm sounds, make sure to go outside and stay outside. Go to your outside meeting place and make sure that you have a plan. And we're going to talk about having a plan here in just a second. Always have two ways out of your home. And, we teach this to kids, but, sometimes as adults, we forget what is important to plan for. What happens when the lights go out and the smoke comes down and you have to be getting out of the house? How fast does fire move? It moves really fast. And I know it sounds kind of quirky, but it'll double in size in a closed room about every 30 seconds. So it's important to understand that you have a very short period of time to get out. You may have less than 2 minutes to get out of your house. Draw a map of your house. Doesn't have to look great. Draw a map of your house. Find and plan for 2 ways to get out of every room, especially the bedrooms. Make sure that the doors and the windows are not blocked. That's one of the things that we find a lot in houses, is people will stack things by exit doors. Choose an outside meeting place. We always tell the kids when we go to school, we want them to meet at the mailbox. That may not be the safest place, but we want them to meet someplace that is safe outside the house and to never, ever go back in. Practice your drill with yourself, your kids, and anybody that's staying with you, a couple times a year. We'll take just a minute or two, excuse me, and you can practice your home escape plan. Get outside to your meeting place and stay there. As the fire department gets there, we will see you and we will determine what we need to do from there. So one of the things we talk about now that we're getting into fall is we talk about different types of house fires. The kitchen is probably 50% of our structure fires will begin in the kitchen, but heating and electrical fires or fires starting from electrical or heating issues are a big problem. So we're going to talk about electrical fires first, and I'm going to go over this with you real quick. So be smart with electricity in your home. There's approximately 47,000 home electrical fires every year. Half of the home electrical fires involve home wiring or lighting equipment. It's always important, especially if you're a DIY person, know what you're doing when you're installing electrical equipment, and make sure that if you have a question, you have a certified licensed electrician to come out to your house and check. Home electrical fire deaths peak between midnight and 8 a.m. And the peak months are December and January. And that's especially when we have heavier loads of electric use in the homes, from heating, from decorations, from all kinds of things. People are inside more, so there's a lot more electrical use. And if there is a weak piece of equipment, that's when it'll give up. So when we talk about heat producing things, plug only one heat producing appliance like a coffee maker, space heater, or microwave directly into a wall outlet. You don't ever want to use an extension cord on a heat producing appliance or a power strip. You want to plug those straight into the wall, and preferably that be the only thing that is plugged into that outlet. Extension cords should only be used temporarily. Having an electrician install an extra wall outlet is not a bad idea. If you need more outlets, for instance, if you have an older home that has fewer outlets, it's always a good idea to have a certified licensed electrician to check your breaker box and see if you can add more plugs to your house. All right, so let's talk about heating. That's the big thing. It's starting to get cool again. We're having a few cool nights, and we're going to start working on cranking the furnace up, the wood burning stove, or the fireplace. And there's a few things we need to talk about to make sure we're safe. So with space heaters, you need to keep space heaters away from anything that can burn, such as bedding, clothing, curtains, at least 3 feet away. Make sure the heater has an automatic shut off or an automatic tip shut off if it ever falls over. Also, make sure you turn heaters off when you go to bed or leave the room. Never leave a portable heater, space heater running when you leave the room or leave the house. Never ever plug one into an extension cord or a power strip. Only use them that are from the UL laboratories or recognized testing laboratory. Be careful when you purchase space heaters that they have a UL label on them. If you have a fireplace, we still have a lot of people that burn wood, keep a glass or metal screen in front of the fireplace to keep embers or sparks from jumping out. You're really not supposed to burn paper in your fireplace because it creates a large ash which will go up the chimney and can go out. It can also go out into the room, which you don't want. You start your fire with small kindling or a wood starter. That's the best. Put the fire out before you go to sleep or leave your home. Always make sure that fire's out. Ashes need to be put in a metal container with a lid outside at least 10 feet from your home. We have had instances where people have cleaned out their fireplace, put them in their metal bucket, and set them out on the deck or next to a bush outside and caught the deck or the bush on fire. Make sure it's at least 10 feet away. If it's windy, you need to put a metal cover on top of that bucket. If you have a wood stove, as just like with a space heater, you want to make sure that that wood stove is about 3 feet away from anything that can burn. Try not to burn paper in your wood stove. Make sure the fire is out before you go to sleep or you leave your home. Now, if that's your main source of heating, obviously you leave it going at night, but make sure that your fireplace and your wood stove are checked yearly by someone who's certified and licensed to make sure that your exhaust, chimney, flue, damper are all in good working order. A good thing is make sure that you have it inspected at least once a year. Excuse me, and make sure to burn good seasoned wood. Pellets are a big thing now, and there's a lot of pellet stoves out there, and those are okay, but make sure your pellets are in good condition and that they don't get wet. You don't want those pellets to get wet, so we want to make sure that those are in good condition. Have your furnace inspected every year. Same thing with kerosene heaters. We still use a lot of kerosene heaters, and it's okay to have a kerosene heater, but you need to be safe with it. You need to make sure it's got an automatic shutoff, it's got a tip shutoff, and only refuel your kerosene heater when it's cool and outside. Okay? Let me go to the next. Give me 1 second. All right, are we on the heating fire safety? Good, we're up there. Like I said, with kerosene heaters, make sure you have those refueled outside. All right. Let me get back over here for a second. Get our shared screen going. I had to take one thing down and put another one up, so give me just a second. So the last thing we're going to talk about on my neck of the woods is we're going to talk about kitchen fires. So the easiest way to prevent kitchen fires. Cooking is the main cause of home fires and home fire injuries. You can prevent a lot of cooking fires if you take these steps. Stand by your pan. If you leave the kitchen, turn off the burner. One thing to remember is if you are cooking and you get distracted, put that wooden spoon in your hand or that spatula wherever you're going. That way it'll remind you that you're still cooking. Watch what you're cooking. Fire start when the heat's too high. If you see any smoke or grease that starts to boil, turn the burner off. Turn pot handles toward the back of the stove if possible. Try not to allow those little folks to get to where they can grab those handles. We don't want that to happen, okay? So, other thing too is when you have a kitchen fire, a lot of people unfortunately try to use water to put out grease for cooking fires, and that's one of the most dangerous things you can do because it'll cause the fire to spread dramatically. When you look at putting out a kitchen fire, what you want to do is you always want to have a cover that you can put on your pan. That will smolder the fire out and then leave it alone. And you can always call us and ask, hey, this is what's happened. Would you mind to come and check it out? And we'll be more than happy to come and check it out. I know I ran through these real fast. If you would like these brochures and all kinds of other fire prevention safety brochures, there's a link on the agenda on Hometown Live's Facebook page and their home page that you can click, and it takes you to the USFA site, and you can pick out any brochure that you'd like, download, get the fire prevention materials for free, as well as many types of escape plans that you can work on. You don't have to draw your own map. That'll give you a sectored map that you can work on and look at it. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me. If you do have any questions and you're on Zoom tonight, you can click the chat button and type in the chat, and I will be more happy to answer your questions. Other than that, I will turn it over to Dr. Motzer and continue with our program. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Very interesting information. We're now going to talk about the current criminal activity in Mercer County, including scams, and Chief Deputy West is here to share with us.
All right, had to unmute myself. So here lately, we've had an increase in theft reports, including trailers. That's been a big topic. It's always important to write down your serial numbers, or your custom numbers. Some people use the last 4 digits of their social. Anything that's help readily identify your items, whether take pictures of your belongings, video. That way, if something does happen, you've got that evidence to come in and show us, hey, this is my trailer. You wouldn't believe how many times that the victims will find their items online for sale. It used to be Craigslist, now it's the Facebook marketplace, and that's kind of been a big hit with us is locating stolen items in that regard.
Chief Deputy West is here to share with us.
Oh, I'm getting some back feed from somewhere. So also, we want to look at, scams. Scams has been a big thorn in our side. I know over the past, I think the Attorney General's office says over $9 million has left Kentucky due to scams. There's been a reported, I guess, excess of 1,500, and that number is more than likely a lot larger than that due to underreporting. A lot of times people are embarrassed after the fact, and it's something you need to be aware of, especially with the upcoming holidays. And some of the ones that that stick out, the most prevalent are the gift card scams. If somebody calls you and is requesting a gift card in lieu of some type of payment, they want you to go buy a series of, several $100 gift cards, iTunes, prepaid visas in order to settle a debt or an outstanding bill. And if anybody that asks you to do that to pay for a bill is definitely a scam. And if you have any questions, you can always contact the sheriff's office first, and we'll be glad to look into it. So that's a big one coming up for the holidays. You got according to the Attorney General's office, any weather related scams. Another thing we've run into also is contractor scams, people that require money up front to do work on your home. A lot of times they'll say that they need money up front, and then they never show back up. So, and that's usually prevalent during our high winds or tornadoes. You have shingles ripped off and some siding falling off. These people will go around and kind of follow the storms, and they will convince you that you need repairs and you need to be paid up front, which is false. Don't fall prey to that. But like I said, if you have any questions like that, you can always contact the sheriff's department, and we'll be happy to look into it. A couple of the other ones that we've had recently that stick out would be besides the credit cards or the scams with the gift cards, you've got these checks. People are receiving checks in an excess amount of money, and they say, "Hey, you've won X amount of dollars. Please cash this check at your bank, and keep a portion of it for yourself. Send us the rest." So they're essentially cleaning the money, is what they're doing, and kind of trying to get themselves out of a paper trail. So, but if somebody sends you a check and asks you to cash it for them, and it does happen quite often, give us a call, and we'll be happy to kind of sort through that and see what we can do. And a great asset to that, that information is the Office of the Attorney General. Daniel Cameron's done a great job with, putting up a lot of information online with consumer reports and, the kind of scams that Kentuckians are falling prey to, and what to watch out for and how to protect yourself. So that was like the checks, the sweepstakes scams. You've won this money. A lot of times that comes in through like Facebook Messenger. That's where I've seen it mostly. You've won $500,000. You have to pay us, $1,000 in order to collect your prize. Well, that's not the case. If you win money, you win money, and you don't have to pay anything. So, but again, check with us, and we can tell you whether it's legitimate or not. Back during COVID, we had it was unreal. It was 3 to 4 a day unemployment insurance fraud. And I believe they actually had to increase their employee size and branch out just because of how many unemployment insurance fraud cases we had. So just be wary of that and protect your Social Security number. Watch your bank statements, those types of things in order to keep yourself safe. Let's see, another one that sticks out would be during the holidays. You'll see a big increase in this. They will offer you like a part-time position in sending and receiving and sending merchandise. So what they do, they will send you merchandise to inspect, quote unquote, inspect this item. They want you to repackage it and send it to a different address. So what is happening? They're purchasing these items with stolen information. They're sending it to your house, and that kind of breaks their contact. If we're trying to backtrace this stolen merchandise, stolen merchandise is received by you. You repackage it, and they say, "Hey, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars to do this for us." That is not a legitimate business, and that's happened a handful of times that we're aware of. That I've had to investigate those, and it's just, it's unfortunate trying to kind of backtrack and try to find these victims, so that we can contact them, let them know that their information has been compromised. They call another one, they call the grandparent scam. They will actually call, they'll receive information of a grandparent that has children. They will actually acquire names, and they will say, little Johnny or Susie is in trouble, and we need you to send us this amount of money, so that they can be released from custody, or maybe they've been taken hostage, or they'll make something obscure up, and it will send you into a panic. This does happen often, and I just ask that people contact us if they have any questions as to sending information like that over the phone, and paying with gift cards. And I will give you one example. I'll make it brief. They had convinced some folks to get their grandchild out of trouble. They were shoving envelopes full of cash and mailing cash, and once they get you on a scam and they think they have you, they're very persistent, and usually they'll give you very specific instructions on where to go, and what to do. And they will repeatedly tell you not to contact anyone, not even your spouse, nobody, because they will have you in a panic. So just know that, take a second and breathe, and give us a call, and we can help you out with that. Earl, I think that about covers the ones that we experience here.
Good. Thank you very much, Chief Deputy West. We appreciate that. Next on our agenda, it's called the Partnership for a Safer Community. And some of you who have attended the Neighborhood Watch programs over the years that Sheriff Kelty and I have conducted will remember this booklet. It's a 22-page booklet, and in there it contains such things as the role of the Neighborhood Watch, what citizens should know about terrorism, recognizing terrorist activity, reporting terrorist activity, disaster preparedness, a checklist that you can use, a community lighting check, community security check, personal property identification, home security checklist, vehicle descriptions, and suspect descriptions. So again, we don't need it for tonight, but if you've downloaded the agenda, this is one of the attachments that I think you would find very helpful. So we've talked about the Neighborhood Watch. It's important and it's good if a number of community citizens get together, communicate, know who's going to be off on vacation, who's not, so you can keep an eye on each other's property. It's very helpful. The next thing that we want to talk about on the agenda tonight is terrorism. Terrorism occurs in small towns. It occurs in medium towns. It concerns large towns. It's international. And the best thing that citizens can do is to remember a few things. Number one, surveillance. Terrorists will likely observe a chosen target during the planning phase of any operation. Two, terrorists attempt to gain information about a place, a person, or an operation that's the target. Three, they take a look at the security. How good is security in the area in which the terrorists want to attack? They look at fundraising. They try to defraud the elderly, as Wes was just saying, asking people for donations, things of that nature. Terrorists also acquire supplies that might be good for bomb making and things of this nature. Suspicious, out of the place behavior. The person is acting inappropriate for the setting or the surroundings. The terrorists try dry runs of what they're trying to accomplish to make sure to see what happens when they do that, to see if anybody's watching, if anybody says anything. And if they find that it's clean run, they can deploy their assets and get into position to carry out whatever it is they're trying to do. Being observant. If you see something, say something. You'll hear me say that from time to time, because when you think about the terrorist activities that have occurred over the years, when you do a hindsight investigation, it usually turns up that one or more people saw something, but they either didn't follow through and say something, or they thought, well, it's none of my business. It is your business. And so the see something, say something, as I said, is very important. We'll talk more about that. Having a family emergency communication plan is really important, because if there is a disaster situation and everybody in your family gets separated or moved in different places, some may go by car, some may go by taxi, some might go by bus, some may go by airplane, some might go by boat. But when they get to their location, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to get in touch, especially the younger children. If you have an emergency communication plan and you know a relative, a friend in another state, whereby you have that person's cell number, that person has your cell number, and every member of your family knows that person's cell number. When you get separated, you can always call that person and try to get back. That person becomes your best friend, because think of the worry that you have if you can't find your family, and that person can help. So think about that. Doesn't cost anything extra, and it may somehow save your life. Another thing, child identification. Folks, there are a lot of child abductions that still occur in the United States. Unfortunately, we wish there were fewer. Quite a number of them are related to family situations. But a lot of times when people call 911 and an officer responds, the particular aggrieved party is so upset, they don't even remember their own telephone number, let alone what the child is wearing or things of this nature. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has a free child ID app for smartphones. Most everybody today has a smartphone, and it can easily be downloaded from the web, and it can be put on your phone. You can put your children's pictures, you can put their description, how to get in touch, etc. And so if something does happen, you think about enough to call 911, And when the officer responds, you give him your cell number, your cell phone, and all of that information about your child is on the app. Now, that means that every 6 months, put a new picture on. Every 6 months, update height, weight, whatever, so that you're doing your part should there be an emergency situation. We all hope that there will never be an emergency situation. However, if that is the case, then we have something. Now, one thing, I know there's been discussions about the FBI in the news these days. The FBI does not maintain the information. The information is maintained by you on your cell phone. The only time that that information is exposed is when you expose it to a law enforcement officer or something else. So don't worry about somebody's looking over your shoulder, has all your children's information. No, it's only you. So keep that in mind. Another thing that we talk about is what's referred to as personal situational awareness. Simply put, personal situational awareness is a frame of mind in which you are attentive to your surroundings and to behaviors, activities, or objects that depart from the norm, seem out of place, or raise concern or security, something of this nature. Prevention is possible, and it helps when, for example, if you're in a private or a public place, on entering that, scan the areas for exits and egress routes. Take note of any obstructions or obstacles that could block or delay quick departure. Identify whether and where guards or law enforcement are positioned. Read or view posted security advisories. If you're waiting for or meeting a group, select a place to sit, stand, or gather that affords you good advantage to observe potentially threatening activities and facilitates safe departure in the event of an incident. Be attentive to objects, especially luggage items, backpacks, or packages that appear to be left unattended. Observe what people are wearing. Is it out of the ordinary for the season of the year? Take note of behaviors that attract your attention. What I'm really trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is maintain your own situational awareness. Don't daydream, especially if you're outside walking or in a place. Be aware of your surroundings. That will help you to get out of a particular dangerous situation. Another thing, basic disaster supplies kit. I hope that you have a disaster supply kit. If not, I encourage you to make one. Have one in your house. You may have a mini one in your car because you may be stranded in either location and you need to have information and you need to have medical equipment, you need to have food, you need to have water to sustain yourself for a period of time. Used to be in the old days, they talked about 3 days under civil defense, food, water, etc. Now we're talking more like a month. And it's important that you can easily buy freeze-dried food that will enable you to be able to sustain yourself in the event of a power failure that affects a whole neighborhood or a whole state or something of this nature. Think ahead, prepare yourself, go back to the personal situational awareness, and you will be much better off by having a kit. Again, if you download the 3-page outline, you will see a link to be able to have that. Another thing, make sure your house number is visible from the street at night. If not, you're hoping to call 911, you're hoping to get fire, police, or medical emergency. But if they can't find you, that's a problem, folks. And some country roads have 4 or 5 mailboxes sitting next to each other, but they don't indicate where the particular house is that belongs to that. We talk about this a lot. Please, please, please go outside tonight. Take a look from your street. Can you see your numbers? If not, do something about it. You can buy numbers at hardware stores, Walmart, things of that nature. And as Chief Maxwell said, if you're unable to install them yourself, the fire department will help you. Another thing to know your school and daycare evacuation policies. Folks, if you learn from your cell phone or wherever else, social media, that the school where your children has been evacuated, it doesn't help to go to that school. Why? Because number one, law enforcement's not going to let you in. Number two, the children aren't there. They have been moved to a designated location. And you need to be aware of that from your school. Another thing, do you know the location of weather shelters? For example, in Mercer County, we have Lions Park that opens up when there are major weather emergencies. Know the difference between sheltering in place versus evacuation. Sheltering in place means you stay in your own location. Evacuation means you move to another location. Enroll in emergency notification system. Mercer County bought and paid for an emergency notification system for all of its residents. But if you aren't enrolled, you can't take advantage of an early warning indicator of weather or something of this nature. The particular service that Mercer County has is called HyperReach. That's HyperReach. If you are not enrolled in HyperReach, 2 simple ways to do that. Call the Bluegrass 911 Center. I'll write this down, you write it down because it's not on the agenda. 859-792-3023. I'll repeat that. 859-792-3023. And enroll for all adults and children in the family who have phones. You may also go to the Mercer Emergency Management Office, which is in the building for the fiscal court at 217 West Lexington. And on the window of that office, you can scan a QR code and onto your cell phone. And that's another way of getting you involved. Please take advantage of this. It's already paid for. You simply need to have that advanced notification that can help save a life. All right. Another thing to be aware of, preparing an emergency kit. We talked about having that kit, but now let's specify in terms of medical needs, because a number of us are on prescription drugs. And we go and we have them filled when they're about out. And let's suppose that it would be a good idea for you if, in fact, you got an extra supply by having your physician order an extra supply to your pharmacy. You would then have one that you're using one that's in your kit, so that if you have to leave, your kit has it in there and it's already prepared. That's something that you should discuss with your physician, and to make sure that you can leave if an emergency evacuation order is in place. Another thing, keep a limited supply of cash on hand. I know cash is tight these days. And if you put just a small amount in there, so that in the event there is a need to have emergency cash for food if it's available, or whatever else, you've got it. So keep that in mind as well. That's when people laugh at when I say it, but it's true. Keep your fuel tank at least half full, because if you drain it down to vapors where you're about ready to go out and you can't even get to the gas station, well, how are you going to get there if the gas station's closed and you have an emergency evacuation order? Whereas if you keep your tank at least half full, one, it doesn't cost that much when you're going to the store, and two, it's peace of mind that it's there. Now, let's go on now to Chief. Have there been any other questions before I move on to the next? Hearing none, I'm going to move forward and cover some medical things that you should understand. One is CPR. Before I go into all of these, let me ask you, and I know you can't answer me right now, but who is the first responder? Your immediate answer might be fire, police, a medical unit, emergency medical. But if something happens to your loved one and you're right there, who's the first responder? You are, which gives you an obligation to make sure that you can deal with things that can help to keep the person alive until the other first responders arrive. So when we talk about CPR, hands-only CPR, take a class. You can do that online. You can do that with the Red Cross. Sometimes volunteers will offer courses, or you can just simply look at one of the handouts that I have, or one of the handouts online that remind you, call 911 first. Why? Because if you start hands-only CPR and you keel over, then we've got two things. Whereas if you call 911 first, report the situation, and then begin life-saving CPR, then that's good. So again, check and call, give chest compressions, and then get involved, and hopefully you will do a good job in keeping that person alive until such time as it is appropriate for the other to come. All right. One other thing. We have it on here as Stop the Bleed. And basically, we're in a farming community where accidents do occur on the farm, sometimes away from the road. And Stop the Bleeding is really important, because 30% of pre-hospital deaths are caused by severe blood loss. And the cause of death can happen in 5 minutes. So we need to act quickly. We need to evaluate safety. We need to tell someone to call 911. We need to evaluate the volume and flow, and we need to apply pressure and hopefully a tourniquet. Now, this may sound like a dumb question, but how many of you carry a tourniquet in your pocket? Probably not very many. There's an alternative. There's something called a carabiner that a lot of you carry because you have your keys on it. A carabiner is a remarkable good way for a tourniquet by simply, if you have to take off your shirt, you wrap that around, tie it in there, and then you turn the carabiner itself until it's in a position which stops the blood, which is above the wound, between the wound and the heart. And then you simply tie that together. So don't worry about the fact you don't have a tourniquet. Get a carabiner. You can get them for like 75 cents at a store. And it's really a way to help save life. Keep that in mind, folks. Now, another thing to talk about is first aid. Probably some of you have had first aid classes, but maybe it was 20 years ago or longer. And you may not remember between this particular situation, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, or whatever. The American Red Cross has free apps, just like I was talking about with the FBI. Free apps that you can download and have available. And within a minute or so, you've looked it up and you know the appropriate method or the appropriate activity to take. So that's important as well. Choking. There, we have handouts available for that. Whenever I think of this, I remember an old colleague of mine, Dr. Henry Heimlich, who was a thoracic surgeon in Cincinnati, where I was. And he was the head of surgery at Jewish Hospital, right across the street from me at Cincinnati General Hospital. And in 1974, he developed the Heimlich maneuver, which basically is the abdominal thrust to engage and make the airway available. So keep that in mind. And if you'd like, you can download the activity from that as well. Now, there's something relatively new that some of you are aware of, some of you may not be. It's called the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 24/7, there are mental health professionals on the phone available to take a call anywhere in the United States under the heading of 988. And you might remember 911. Most people remember that these days when you need to, for some type of police or fire emergency. But when you have a mental health emergency, think 988, because you will be in touch with someone, and the data so far is showing that they've been able to save a life simply by getting in touch and talking with a mental health counselor. So yes, we have a handout of that, but the important thing is that try to look on that. You can look on your computer, look up 988, and you can see that, and you can see the facts involved. All right, I'm now going to switch from talking about medical things to talking about something that Ernie and I have been talking about a long time, and we all hoped that it was going to be going away. And unfortunately, it didn't go away. In fact, it's raising its ugly head and getting worse. And that's what's referred to as an active shooter situation. You know, sometimes bad people do bad things. The warning signs may vary and the motivations are different. You need to be prepared for the worst and be aware of surroundings, which goes back to the personal situational awareness. You need to have a survival plan. It's not 20 pages in length. It's not 10 pages in length. It's 3 words. The first word is run. The second word is hide. And the third word is fight. You can go onto the web and put in run, hide, fight, and you can see videos that amplify what I'm about to tell you. So always try to escape and encourage others to do so. That's called the run. Leave belongings behind and use stairs instead of elevators and escalators, and help others and prevent entry from people who are trying to get into the place where the activity is occurring. Now, always, you see where my hands are and my fingers? Law enforcement wants to go home at night as well after their shift. And so if you're running away and law enforcement is approaching, they need to see that you're not a threat to them. So hands up high, fingers spread. Call 911 as soon as possible and give as much detail as possible. For example, the number of suspects, where they're currently located while you're talking. What are they wearing? Are they having some type of armor on? What are the types of weapons? Is it a big long gun? Is it a small Derringer? Approximately how many shots have been fired, if they have been? When was the last time you heard gunfire? What is your current location? And the number of people who are with you at the time. Now, and are there any hostages or injuries or things of that nature? All right, so we've covered the run part and the notification part. Let's suppose you can't run because the perpetrator is right outside the door, and but luckily he or she is moving. I say he or she, 90% are male, 10% are female, is going away from you. After you're sure that he's far away from you, you can go back into that run mode. And in the meantime, you've got to hide. Do so quickly and quietly, turn out lights, as long as they don't give the perpetrator some sense that somebody's there. Try to lock and block doors, silence your cell phone, conceal behind large objects, remain quiet. If possible, put furniture up against that door. And I'll tell you why. Because if the door, even if it isn't locked, but the perpetrator can't get in easily and quickly, he most likely will move on to the next location where he can get in and do damage. So having a way to block that door is extremely important. Now, let's say that you've tried to run, was not possible. You hid for a while, but you were discovered. The last word is fight. I can't tell you what to do. Each person has their own reactive style, but I can say that if you think that your life is in danger, you might want to do something about it, and that's acting with aggression. Improvised weapons. Perhaps there's a fire extinguisher that you can shoot right into the perpetrator's eyes, a chair, etc. Your goal is to incapacitate the shooter and then run like crazy and notify law enforcement. So I've told you about the civilian side. It's now my partner, Wes Gaddis, is going to talk to you about what the first responders do. Wes?
Okay, thanks, Earl. So we would like to think that we're prepared for these incidences, and we try to be. But from the people I've spoke to who've had firsthand knowledge of these incidents, there's nothing you can do to prepare for this. But when we arrive on scene, um, what you can expect from us is maybe not a large police presence, because this is a rural community and in a rural setting, and you may encounter one or two, but you can assure behind us the cavalry's coming from all directions, from other agencies outside the of our jurisdiction and within. But so you'll see us with long guns, you'll see us with external vests, you'll see us with our gear. We'll be running, to the threat, of course, and we expect those who are able to be running out. But as Dr. Mochard said, hands up where we can see them, fingers spread, obey our commands. We'll be telling you to either be exiting the building or getting down. If you do have information as to where the shooter is, the killer, just let us know, guide us in that direction. Any information is great. Anything that's relevant. So keeping hands visible, avoid making quick movements towards the officers, avoid screaming and yelling. We will also be screaming and yelling at each other to communicate. That's just the nature of intense situations. Is we will be yelling commands, more likely to get over the noise that we're surrounded with. Another thing to keep in mind is a physiological thing that'll happen to your body and ours as well, is auditory exclusion. You may not really be able to hear what we're saying immediately. Things will be muffled. You'll have tunnel vision. Same way with us. So the best course of action on a civilian part is keeping hands, fingers spread apart, hands up, and so that we don't see you as a threat, because we are looking for that individual to engage. And until we engage that individual, there's not going to be any medical treatment being provided until we stop the threat and make sure everything is safe. Don't just ask that you don't interfere with what we're doing. We're here to do a job, and nothing makes me more happy to do it. I'm happy to do it, and the people that work with me, they're happy to do it also. That's just what we do. We may be wired a little funny, but we are there to help you, and we're gonna hit that as hard as we can, and we make sure everybody is safe. But that's the main thing. The hands is what gets officers hurt. If we can see your hands, you're not a threat to us, and we'll keep moving, and that just expedites we're us engaging the threat. So that's the best course of action on the civilian side of that.
Wes, thank you very much. Would you please go on and talk about the community lighting, security checklist, et cetera, other things that law enforcement need to be able to share with our audience tonight?
Yeah. So the community lighting, and just be a lit property like my house. I have security lights up, motion activated lighting, cameras. When planting trees and shrubs, be mindful of where you're placing those, as those can be potential hiding places for someone that wants to do you harm, or the thief can use that as cover, especially if it's in a dark area. So keeping your things, your property lit is very important. Just to keep that in mind. And I always recommend, folks get some type of surveillance camera. I mean, less than $100, you can get yourself a motion activated camera that works off Wi-Fi. I can monitor mine from my phone. I can talk to people through my phone. And like I said, it's less than $100, and it incorporates a spotlight. So just be mindful of those things, and that's just an aspect of being aware of your surroundings, including around your house. That's very important. Earl, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you've done a good job. Want to go on to the identification, engravers, et cetera?
Okay, yeah. So, we're talking about protecting your assets and your property. As we talked about earlier with the trailer thefts that we've had here in the county. We have an engraver at the office you can borrow if you want to engrave some of your items with some type of personal identification number. You so-called make your own serial number. Make sure you document those things and keep a list of your valuables. That way, if in case something happens, it's readily identifiable. That happens more often than not. We're not looking for a trailer with serial number XYZ. It's got a wheel that's a different color, or there's a specific part that's bent or has damage to it that we can really identify. Hey, this item was stolen because of that specific flaw. And keeping a list of your credit cards and numbers to call, very important. That because a lot of times we keep our numbers that are closest to us, they're on our phones. Well, it's an electronic device. Those things can go bad, and if you drop it in the lake, there goes your contacts. So have those backed up. Write them down. Keep them in a notebook. That's one. I still have a Rolodex. In my office. So that's been a huge asset. Keeping those things written down, and as far as like your credit card numbers and anything sensitive like that, keep those written, so that in the case if something does happen to those, you lose them, that they're stolen, you can immediately get those canceled and that taken care of. Home security checklist, video content store, vehicles locked. People still do that. People still roam the streets and in roads all hours of the night. Back to lighting your environment up, keeping things lit, parking in a lit area. Lock your doors. That people still lift door handles. They more likely than not, they're not going to break your window. But if your door is unlocked, that's an easy target, and that's the direction they're going to go. I've actually fallen victim to that myself. But it's amazing, the reports that I take and talking to citizens, it just takes one time. I always lock my door. I always lock it. I didn't last night, and somebody went through my vehicle stuff, stole my change, stole my purse. That tells me that if it just a one occasion you kept your doors unlocked, they're lifting your door handle frequently and checking. And that's to say, if don't keep valuables in your car. That people do. I understand that, especially firearms. Keeping firearms in your vehicle when you're in the vehicle is a great idea. Responsible gun ownership, but we have to be responsible. So if you're not in your vehicle, remove the weapon. If you're going to lock it up overnight, just be mindful that, if a purse is laying out in the open, you could get your window broken, for that purse. That's actually happened to a family member of mine. The purse was in the car, the window got broke, and that's all they wanted was the purse. So make sure you don't keep those in the vehicle if at all possible. Earl, do you want to go over the vacation checklist, or I can talk about firearm ownership?
Yeah, I'll quickly do the vacation and transfer
Okay.
back to you for that.
Perfect.
The sheriff's office offers a service so that if you are on vacation, you can let us know and we can know when you're leaving and when you're returning, and make courtesy checks from time to time. And we're happy to do so under one condition. Don't come back early and fail to notify us, because you may find yourself with a weapon pointed at you because we don't know who you are in the middle of the night, and there you are. So always, we're happy to provide the service, but we want you to tell us when you're leaving, when you're coming back, and if anyone else is authorized by you to be at their particular residence, so they don't have a rude awakening as well. And there is a checklist that you can look at your convenience if you have downloaded the agenda and you want to use that particular link. So now we'll go to responsible firearms ownership. Back to Wes.
Thank you, Earl. Yes, back to the responsible gun ownership. There's a lot of, and I keep saying it, there's a lot of responsibility when owning a firearm, especially if you are going to keep it and use it for self-protection. We recommend that you take a class, although Kentucky law does not require you to have your carry concealed license any longer, but we do recommend that. And part of that training, you talk about gun safety, you talk about the laws, the use of force laws in which you can use your firearm in order to protect yourself and your property. So that I definitely recommend that class, and that way you become comfortable with it. You learn the nomenclature of the weapon, about the safety, treating guns as they're always loaded, always pointing the weapon in a safe direction, and always assuming that it's loaded. That's just the best. It's the best way to do it. Firearms being loaded in the house. If it's in a gun safe, I don't see a problem with it in the safe, but a lot of folks don't have a safe. So definitely keep your firearm unloaded in the house and out of sight and reach of other folks, other people, especially children. Because, and it doesn't even, and I say that because it doesn't even matter if you hide it. Kids are good at finding things. That's just what they do. So keeping the ammunition and the firearm separate from each other is the only way to do it. Let's see. Keep muzzle point safe direction, treat them while it's loaded. Some weapons have a safety. Don't rely on that safety. It's mechanical. Mechanical things fail all the time. That just goes back to treating every gun as if it's loaded and keeping them unloaded, especially in your home. And then, target practicing. Not only is, weapon safety important when carrying concealed or for your protection, make sure you practice these safety rules when you're target practicing, like knowing what's beyond your target. this is a rural community and people do have livestock. And although it is a rural community, houses are starting to go up everywhere, and we have a lot of county subdivisions now. So just be mindful of what's beyond your target, because you are, as in our job, you're responsible for every round that's fired. Target practicing is great, but done in the safe and correct manner. But yeah, so just reiterate, and the most important thing, get a gun, keep a gun or firearm, keep it unloaded in the house, and your ammunition separate. That's the best way to do it, and keeping those firearms out of your vehicle if you're not in your vehicle. Just
Thank you, Wes.
be mindful of those things.
Yeah, that's good information. We talked earlier in the program about giving descriptions, and I want to talk a little bit more and go in depth with that. When you have a problem and you call 911 or law enforcement to come, you need to provide the best possible description you can. Now, law enforcement's going to come whether you have a description or not. But if you want the best quality response from law enforcement, the best quality comes from the information that you can provide. So, for example, if we're talking about a suspect, things like sex, race, age, height, weight, the color of hair, the eye color, glasses wearing or not, is there a mustache or beard or sideburns? Are there tattoos? Are there amputations? Are there scars? Are there speech impediments or accents? What color of shirt is, or in coat and tie, if the person is wearing either one? Are they wearing a hat? What does it say on it? How about the pants? Are they jeans? Are they cutoffs? The shoes, are they, what type do you have? Is there a weapon involved? You might not know the difference between a small weapon and a large rifle, but give the information that you have. Is there a knife involved? How big is it? And when you're talking about, that's the suspect side. When you're talking about the vehicle side, take a look to what extent can you talk about the make or the year or the model or the color or the interior color? Were there tinted windows? Did the vehicle have damage somewhere? How many doors? 2 doors, 4 doors? Was it a convertible, a hatchback? Did the vehicle have license plates? Do you know what they were? The numbers, the letters? Do you know what state that it was? Anyone in the front seat? Anyone in the back seat? What did the driver look like? What direction did the car come from? What direction did the car leave? And did the vehicle make any noises like a muffler or something of this nature? Folks, to the extent that you are able, and I say that because some of you may not be able. You might just say, I don't know, but I need to report it. Fine, we understand. But to the extent that you can give appropriate descriptions of the vehicle and of the perpetrator or suspect, it will enhance the quality of the response by law enforcement. And Ernie used to talk about many different examples of a person who gave a complete description of a car. The law enforcement officer was en route to the scene, but found the car going by, turned around, stopped it, and found the perpetrator without even going to the scene. Why? Because the person who reported it gave a great description, which was then given to the responding officer, who was able to make the arrest. So that's what we're talking about. Now, the next thing on the agenda is what to do if stopped by law enforcement. And Wes is going to cover that.
Thanks, Earl. One of the functions of police and deputy sheriffs, we enforce traffic laws, as well as other criminal activity. So the best practices, and a lot of this has gone over in a carry concealed class, back to gun ownership and safety. We go over these things, very thoroughly. So whenever stopped by law enforcement, what we're looking for is your hands. Your hands are what hurts us. That's what gets us killed or hurt. So that's the first thing we're looking for. While we're approaching the vehicle, are you shuffling around? Are you reaching for things? That really puts us on notice and on guard. So remaining calm, remaining still, hands where we can see them, preferably on the steering wheel. That way there's no question as to how this is going to go. So keeping the hands in plain sight. Don't get out of the vehicle unless you're instructed to. If we ask you to exit the vehicle, it's for a good reason. Not that, we're just, trying to be mean. If you have a weapon in the car, immediately tell us that and where it's located. Don't reach for it or show us where it's at, or, unless we ask. But, we're okay with you having a firearm in the car. We want you to protect yourself. But, keeping your hands where we can see them, that goes back to that fact. And, if your car has dark tinted windows, roll the windows down so that we can see inside. If it's nighttime, turn your interior light on, so that we can see inside. It just makes us feel better, when we can see everything going on. Like I said, and we, we'll ask for your information, your ID and your insurance or whatever we need. But just comply with officer requests. And in the case that, you're unsure of who is it exactly that's stopping you, maybe you don't recognize that vehicle readily as law enforcement, or you have questions about that. It's dark, you're by yourself, you don't feel comfortable way out here in the county, call 911. That get a dispatcher on the phone, let them know, hey, I'm being stopped. I really don't know what to do. Is this, legitimate? Because those things do happen. They have happened in the past that someone that has no business with emergency equipment in their vehicle making traffic stops. But just call 911, talk to dispatch. They'll actually call us immediately, and ask what our location is if we're trying to make a traffic stop, and then we'll address the situation from there. If you prefer just to stop in a well-lit area, we're okay with that too. Make sure you get off the shoulder of the road far enough to where we're all out of traffic, so we're not ran over. And just find a lit area, that's fine. Use your blinker. If you're going to postpone stopping, turn your blinker on. That kind of acknowledges, hey, I know you're behind me, and I'm going to find a place to pull over. Give me a minute. So, those things are acceptable. But if there's any question as to, is this a legitimate traffic stop, or is there any reservations about that? Call 911. That's what 911's for. So, and that gets you a direct line to dispatch and to us. And, like I said, we'll address it from there.
Thank you, Wes. I'm now going to go through a few handouts, the information that's contained in them, so that you're aware of that should you decide that you want to download something later on. The first thing we're going to talk about is identity theft. Now, Wes talked about that earlier, and the warning signs, of course, are bills from items you did not buy, debt collection calls for accounts you did not open, information on your credit report for accounts you did not open, denials of loan applications, or mail stops coming to or missing from your mailbox. There are ways to report it and what to do when it happens and how to protect yourself. And that information is contained in the handout. The second thing, I hate to even have to go through this one, but if you read a newspaper, if you watch television, and you follow the news, you'll know that some of our enemies are rattling their swords as it relates to nuclear weapons. And so I provided this handout from FEMA on being prepared for a nuclear explosion, one that I hope never, never, ever happens. But there are ways, if you're not in the immediate area of the explosion, there are ways to protect yourself and you can stay alive by getting inside or staying tuned, or what to do and what to do during the explosion, what to do afterwards, etc. I'm not going to begin to go through all of that on this slide, but I tease you by telling you it's available on the 3-page agenda and it's helpful. And if I were you, I would go over this with my family so that we would know what to do if the unthinkable happens. The second thing, or the next thing to talk about, is something that Wes did a great job of talking about earlier. So I'm not going to spend much time on it. It happens to be the common scams that target seniors and how to avoid them. And yes, some of those occur in Mercer County. And as I say, Wes did a good job with that because he talked about charity. There are funeral scams, government imposter scams. He talked about grandparents, internet scams, Medicare scams, reverse mortgage scams, sweepstakes scams. So all of those things you can look at your convenience, but don't get sucked in by those things. It also goes back to personal situational awareness. Be aware of who's trying to do what to you, and never hesitate to call a sheriff's office for advice. The next thing is cybersecurity. It's a blessing and a curse. It provides us with much more data, much faster than we could ever do with an adding machine. On the other hand, now criminals find ways to do what are called cyber attacks, and to limit, and things that you can do to prevent this is to limit the personal information you share online. Change privacy settings and do not use location features. Keep software applications and operating systems up to date so you have the best protection possible. And create strong passwords by using upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters, and use a password manager or 2 methods for verification. There's so much more that we could get into, and don't have the time to do that tonight, but that's the reason for having handouts and linkages to those so that we're in good stead with that. Now, I want to give a couple of other things here. And one of those, I'll cover that in a little bit. So we've talked about seniors. We've talked about the next one that I want to talk about is human trafficking. Folks, It's estimated that worldwide there are 50 million people who are enslaved. That's 27.6 of those are actual slavery, 22 million forced marriages around the world. There are $150 billion profit for the traffickers. Think about that. $150 billion worldwide. So you see why it's very attractive to perpetrators. And the numbers I just gave you, 50 million people, 150 billion profit, it's just like Wes said with some earlier numbers that he talked about. We believe it's underreported. We believe it's much worse than that. And so there are 15 federal agencies of the government who are working on this particular problem of human trafficking and forced labor. In rural settings, we see quite a bit of forced labor, be it on farms or things of that nature throughout the United States. And in some of the bigger cities, we see a lot more of what's called human trafficking. To give you an idea, labor trafficking includes situations where men, women, and children are forced to work because of debt, immigration status, threats, and violence. Keeping victims isolated physically and emotionally is a key method of control in most labor tracking situations. That does not mean you never cross paths with the people who are experiencing the trafficking. However, they feel pressured by their employer to stay in a job or a situation they might want to leave. They owe money to an employer or recruiter or are not paid what they were promised or are owed. They do not have control of their passports or identity documents. They're living and working in isolated conditions, largely cut off from interaction with others or support systems. They appear to be monitored by other persons when talking or interacting with others, and are working in dangerous conditions without proper safety gear, training, adequate breaks, or other protections, and are living in dangerous, overcrowded, or inhumane conditions provided by an employer. That's recognizing labor trafficking. And there's a reason why I'm going over these with you, and I'll tell you in a minute. But first, how do you recognize sex trafficking? It occurs when individuals are made to perform commercial sex through use of force, fraud, or coercion. Any child under 18 who is involved in commercial sex is legally a victim of trafficking, regardless of whether there is a third party involved. People may be experiencing sex trafficking if they want to stop participating in commercial sex, but feel scared or unable to leave the situation. They disclose they were reluctant to engage in commercial sex, but someone pressured them into it. They live where they work or are transported by guards between home and workplace, which is sometimes we see in massage parlors. Our children who live with or are dependent on a family member with a substance use program or who is abusive. They have a pimp or a manager in the commercial sex industry. They work in an industry where it may be common to be pressured into performing sex acts for money, such as strip club, illicit cantina, go-go bars, illicit massage, or they have a controlling parent. And unfortunately, the one I'm going to be talking to you about now happens more than we think. Have a controlling parent, guardian, romantic partner, or sponsor who will not allow them to meet or speak with anyone alone, or who monitors their movements, spending, or communications. The important thing, and the reason that I mentioned those, is that it's important to, if you feel as though there's a possible trafficking or forced labor situation going on, is to timely report that. And where do you do that? You report that to the DH Center for Countering Human Trafficking tip line. And I'll give you that number twice. 866-347-2423. That's 866-347-2423. Now, obviously, if it's an emergency situation, you call 911. But it's important that if it's not an emergency, but it's a suspicion, you call the DH Center for Countering Human Trafficking tip line, and they will put you in touch. Now, if you don't remember that, if you don't have it, sure, call your local department. They can give you that information. So it's important that we do everything in our possible to try to stamp out human trafficking and sex slavery and forced labor slavery. It sounds like a third world country issue. I can assure you, it happens right here in the United States. It happens right here in Kentucky. All right. Now, my friend Wes is going to talk to you about a program that he runs and that he supports the United States Marshals because they don't have enough manpower nor federal funding to do the amount of checks that need to be done for those who are registered sex offenders. And Wes, talk us about that.
Thank you, Earl. So part of the sex offender registry, there's particular rules they have to live by state statute or the rules of the local probation and parole office. The checks that we perform, it typically is going to be twice a year, where we make a visit to all the registered offenders, personally to each home. In the meantime, the state police is really good about sending out these forms to verify mailing addresses and by registered mail. And then if an offender fails to keep his address updated, or they don't get that return back to the state police, then they send me a notice, and it basically says, hey, you need to go check this person to see if they moved and haven't told us, because there are rules, and they have a certain time frame they have to do that if they plan on moving. And that's actually not even a time frame. It's the day before they move or on the day that they move. Then they have to actually go physically in person to check with local probation parole. So we do that on a regular basis. It's weekly, from the notices that I get. We also work with probation parole on Halloween night. And this isn't a secret, but between probation parole and the offenders, they know they're going to get a home visit on Halloween night, because that's a standard protocol that they do, and they're restricted from actually leaving the house unless they're working. But aside from that, legislation has passed some new laws that are going into effect with homeless registrants. So if you're living in the bush behind a business or under a bridge, they can now track you that way, and that's how they will register. And I've not seen that yet, so I'm sure that'll be coming, and then that individual will have to go to the local probation parole office every 30 days to just update, make sure they haven't skipped town or they've actually moved. Um, but that's one thing we've done, and another law that's went into effect is registrants aren't allowed to live within 1,000 feet of school, a public playground, leased playground, anything publicly owned like that, or daycares. So with that in mind, they've extended that to mobile businesses, like food trucks or some type of mobile business like that. They're not allowed to set up and work within 1,000 feet of a school, publicly owned playground, a pool, those things where people gathered and kids are there. So they've extended those rules as well. But we do take those very seriously, and we have a good working relationship with Probation Pro and the U.S. Marshals to stay on top of their locations and to make sure that all their paperwork's in order and then they're compliant. And I'll close with this. And if you look at the state police website, that's where you can go and look at every registered offender. And you can actually type in your address in a certain radius, and it'll show you who lives in that radius of your home. It's on the offender registry. And don't be alarmed by the excessive numbers that Mercer County has, because we also incorporate North Point Training Center, the prison. So a lot of those numbers come from the prison inmates at that facility. But just keep that in mind, and again, go to the state police website. They have a lot more information as to each individual.
Thank you, Wes. Great job. We're coming down to the wire now. I want to talk to you about drugs. The Sheriff's Office provides semi-annual drug take-back days. Now, you can come Monday through Friday during business hours and drop off drugs. No questions asked. But some people don't know that or don't think about that because they're busy doing other things. And so twice a year, we advertise the fact that we have a drug take-back day. The next one is coming up October 28th. It's a Saturday morning from 8 to noon, right here at the Sheriff's Office. And we ask that you come during that time frame. We will come out to your car. We will get your drugs. Thank you very much for bringing them to us. Take them in. We have a pharmacist there who then tallies up the amount of narcotics that we collect, and we then incinerate all of the drugs that we collect. So that's important. Please remember, and why is it important? Because you know what? Let's say that you have a household with some children, and you have other children that come to visit from time to time, and they ask if they can use the bathroom. And guess where some people put their drugs? They put them in the medicine chest in the bathroom. And there have been thefts occurring from that perspective. So if you see something that you're not sure what it is and you don't want to touch it, that's fine. Call the Sheriff's Office or the local police department if you're in Harrodsburg, and they will come, they will look at it, they will take it away, and they will safeguard it until it becomes incinerated. So remember that. Drugs are important, including fentanyl, and that's something that there's a handout that you can look at on your agenda as well. It's a major problem, and it kills a lot of people, and you need to get smart about it. Now, we have started 7 o'clock. It's 8:45. We promised to end by 9 o'clock, but that gives 15 minutes for anyone who has a question that they want to ask And I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, Chief Rick Maxfield, to indicate whether there are questions for myself or Wes or yourself to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Motzer. Thank you, Wes, as well. It's been a great program tonight. As of right now, in the chat boxes on Hometown Live's Facebook post and our Zoom link, I have been posting the links that Dr. Motzer has been talking about and Wes has been talking about, as well as some phone numbers for non-emergent or business line phone numbers for the Sheriff's Department, as well as Bluegrass 911. So we're going to give it a minute or two and allow people to chat on the Facebook Live on Hometown Network, as well as on our Zoom link. If you have questions, I'll monitor both of those for right now. And if you do have questions, please type your question in.
Busy doing other things, and so twice a year we advertise. And some kind of feedback. Maxfield.
Yeah, there's a little feedback occasionally when I'm monitoring the Facebook Live page as well as the Hometown their website. Before when you pull it up, the audio starts automatically, so you'll get a little feedback occasionally.
Thankfully, that we have you running the Zoom, and we have Robert Wagner running the Hometown Radio thing. Both of you are experts at your field, and I marvel at your experience and expertise. And I also want to thank you publicly for the opportunity to be able to be on here with Wes and to share information that would be helpful to the public. So thank you both very much.
You're very welcome. It looks like it went great. I don't have any questions as of yet, but like I said, if you will check your chat box on the Zoom link, as well as the Hometown Live Facebook Live post, the links to the discussions you've been having are on there, but you can also contact us at the non-emergency or business lines that we've provided for you to call and ask for any of the documents. I can email them to you because I have the links to them now. So other than that, no questions have popped up. Excuse me, Dr. Motzer, do you have anything in closing you'd like to talk about?
No, sir. I just want to thank everybody who did listen for some or all of this presentation. I hope you found it useful. This is an experiment with us. We've done all of these things in person in the past. We wanted to see whether the public liked it or not. So we would appreciate any feedback to the Sheriff's Office or to the Fire Department or to WHBN. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Is there parts of it that you want more information about, et cetera? Because, I still have my radio show on WHBN, Mercer County's Most Wanted. And when there's in time and you need some additional information, I'm happy to share that. So I'll turn it over to Wes for last comments, and then Rick, you can adjourn us.
All right, thank you, Earl. No, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. Like Dr. Motzer said, and Rick both, if there's any questions and you want more elaboration on any of the topics or have anything you need to ask us, aside from radio or the chat from the Zoom meeting, feel free to reach out to us. We're always available.
All right, good deal. For those of you that may not be in the chat, for a couple telephone numbers for response to us, Mercer County Sheriff's Office Business Non-Emergency Line is area code 859-734-4221. Wes, what time does the office close on weekdays usually?
And the office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Right now it's a heavy tax season. We have a lot of folks in and out, but we're staffed during those hours, and after hours, we provide 24-hour coverage with a deputy, and that individual can be reached through a dispatch non-emergency line at 859-792-3023. And that would send you to Bluegrass 911 Center, and that would get you a direct link to us. And we're available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Good deal. And you can also use that same Bluegrass 911 number to call and register if you're going to do an open burn, controlled burn, as well as if you need to contact somebody in the Mercer County Fire Protection District, as well as the Harrodsburg Fire Department and Bergen Fire Department. That Bluegrass 911 number that Wes said, 859-792-3023. If you don't have anything else to say, gentlemen, I think we will bid farewell and good night to everyone. I certainly appreciate everybody who has been watching on Zoom, as well as Facebook Live through Hometown Radio Network and on their website. Without any further ado, hope you all have a wonderful night. Be safe and call us when you need us. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And we'd like to